Paltrocast. There he is, the great Darren. He appears on my screen. Easy.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you and following your work for decades. And The Painter is yet another piece of great work you did there. Was it all filmed for you in Vancouver?
It was, yeah. Uh-huh.
Now, when did you start to notice a lot of the filming was happening in Vancouver as opposed to New York, where you're originally from?
Yeah, it's interesting what I have seen in my lifetime, of course. Uh, I've seen a lot of changes. And one thing that happened during my lifetime is that, and it probably started with my earlier career, was that the studios used to shoot all sorts of things in the studio,
Mhm.
like Casablanca, right?
Yeah.
They shot in the studio, put a couple of palm trees up outside, whatever. And they did some clever things, and you really felt you were in Casablanca. But they didn't go to Casablanca. But when we did Midnight Cowboy, we shot it in New York City, on the streets of New York City. So we started, it was before that, I think, that was starting to drift into that possibility. And then during my lifetime, many other things have happened. The technological stuff that is available for films now wasn't available until very recently, and that stuff was enabled filmmakers to make stories that they hadn't been able to make before, and that included Lord of the Rings, which was something that everybody wanted to make and couldn't find a way to do it with the size that was indicated in the story. So they did it in cartoons, they did it this way, and then and Peter Jackson, to his credit, identified this story for the potential that it had and the depth that it had.
Yeah.
And it was his genius. I would have to say that there's an area of genius in Jackson.
Yeah, well, and to rudely interrupt you, he saved Lord of the Rings and he saved the Beatles. So Peter Jackson has saved a lot of culture in a good way. But I'd rather talk about you and your greatness, if that's fine.
Oh, well, I don't know. Okay. All
Well,
right.
you mentioned Midnight Cowboy, and of course, that role that you played, that award-winning role, has nothing to do with the Jon Voight that we know as a person, just like the role that you have in The Painter has nothing to do with you and the human being. So how much prep was needed for this particular role as Byrne?
Well, I didn't have to do any research for the role because the relationships were something I understood.
Mhm.
It was very well written for the understanding of the characters. So I merely had to. I've been there before. I mean, mainly he's a mentor,
Mhm.
and he's a person of some stature and strength and influence, and those things came to me with age anyway. So that's why I was cast for the role, because I have a certain I don't know what is it called?
Well, I would go reliable.
Gravitas.
Oh,
Gravitas. You kidding me? I say that gravitas. I have gravitas.
That's the James Lipton thing, the gravitas. And yes.
Yeah. Anyway, but you get older and then you have the gravitas.
Yeah. Well,
but anyway, so I knew the role pretty well. I mean, I knew I could do that role pretty well, and then it's just making the association with the other actors,
yeah,
and knowing who we are to each other, and enjoying that aspect of it, and having the fun of the film, which is the tricks and the magic of it. The deception and this and that, the puzzle of it, which is very satisfying in the end. I think it comes to the end, and you've been through a terrific journey.
Yeah,
So,
and you mentioned those other actors, and I had the pleasure of speaking with Charlie yesterday, and he was mentioning that it was a satisfying role and a great cast, but also that he felt kind of beat up physically from this role. Hopefully, you didn't feel beat up. You weren't exerted and hit.
no, I was enjoying Charlie getting beat up from the role. That's what That was my joy. No, I have to say, with great respect to Charlie, this really tested him.
Mhm.
Not only was the role, prominent in almost every scene, but he had these very complex fight sequences
Mhm.
that did brilliantly, and that were very, very uh, rich with lots of different kinds of moves and surprises within the fight sequences, and had a lot of acting attached to them as well. But also, just the physical demand on Charlie was extraordinary, and he pulled that off amazingly. And would he be beaten up from that? Sure, he should have been, because they were really tough sequences to do, and they had to be done within a time period too. I mean, everybody had to go, they had to bring their A game. All of those guys, all of the guys he shot and booted, and all that stuff. Those guys were equally damaged in the process. And you're going to get bruises in those things too. By the way, no
Yeah.
matter how good you are, you're going to be bruised up a little bit. So
The craft. Well, I have an obscure New York question for you, if that's okay.
I have an obscure answer.
So I know in digging into your history that you're originally from the Yonkers, White Plains area. Were you
Right.
in high school with either Captain Lou Albano or Alan Alda?
I went to the same high school as Alan Alda, and he graduated before I came, just the year before I came.
Got it.
And Alan Alda was he was the guy when I came to that school. He had been in the plays and he'd made a mark. And then later on, I met Alan again, and we worked. Finally, we got a chance to work together, although we were never on camera together. But we worked in the series of Ray Donovan the last couple of years.
Right. The other person I mentioned, Captain Lou Albano, is this famous professional wrestling manager who went into film and television and was in Cyndi Lauper videos. And I think he was in that high school around the same time you were.
Really, that's Lou Albano.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
very possible I know him. Yeah, very possible.
well,
It sounds familiar. The name sounds familiar, actually, but maybe it's because of the other things.
he had rubber bands in his beard. I mean, hard to forget that guy. But anyway, back to you here. Uh,
Very
according
good
to
that you're keeping up with Lou. Do you write each other?
I wish he's in the ground, unfortunately, but we still watch his videos a lot here.
That's
What can you do?
okay.
But
It's
back
true,
to
Lou.
you.
I tried to bring it back into the conversation.
Um, so in doing some research also, it looks like the few films have been filmed since The Painter. Do you know what is coming out next for you?
I don't know which one is going to come out next, but I have a feeling it's going to be a film called Shadowland, which I'm very pleased with.
Are you a nice person in that movie, or are you menacing in Shadowland?
I'm very, I'm actually pretty nice in Shadowland. Yeah, I'm a pretty good guy. I'm a former president who's feels like he's starting to lose it a little bit, and he's having these dreams that he's someone's out to kill him. And as he goes through the process, and he talks to this person who serves as a kind of a friend, but a kind of a shrink to him, psychiatrist. He he goes on this journey, and it turns out he's right. Somebody's trying to kill him,
Hmm,
and they have to solve it. And that it's an interesting piece, very interesting piece.
sounds it. Do you have time for two more complimentary warm questions, or is it the end of the road for Mr. Jon Voight?
Well, do you think that I cut things off before complimentary warm questions?
Well, there you go.
What
There's
the
the
hell kind of a, you know what I mean? What
so,
kind of sense do you think I have? Yeah. Of course, bring on the warm complimentary questions.
and that I shall, because you said so. And the first one is you've worked extensively as a philanthropist beyond all of your on screen awards and steady working and all that. And one of the organizations you've been a part of is the Kennedy Center, working on the honors and all that.
Uh-huh.
Are we allowed to know what's coming next from the Kennedy Center in terms of award shows or great things? I heard a rumor that the band Chicago might be getting an honor or some kind of a presentation.
Oh, that's nice. I don't know. I'm not up with that at the moment. I have to say that with the Kennedy Center, there was a lot of politics involved with that at the time I was going through it, and I really like the people who run the Kennedy Center, and I was a big fan of John Kennedy's and remain a big fan of John Kennedy's and the Kennedy family. Robert Kennedy Jr. is a great man. And Joe Kennedy, these guys are good guys. Anyway, but I haven't been up on what's going on, but I do recommend that people take a look at what they did last year with Adam Sandler's award. They gave him the Mark Twain Award, I think, for comedy, and he had all his pals, come and be part of that evening as they usually do, and that was one of the most moving award ceremonies of its kind that I have seen. I recommend that people take a look at it. Adam he's a great blessing, Adam, and it's proven in the way he handled this with his family and his friends. It was great. It was one of the best things I've seen on television in that way.
Sure. Last thing I got for you, speaking of great comedic icons, your episode of Seinfeld remains one of the most quoted and referenced episodes ever. But for you, that was just basically a week on set and then, or less, and then done. Did you know that it was going to have that long-standing impact and be a thing that decades later people would be quoting at you?
But it's amazing. It's amazing that it had such such an impact on folks, but I'm so glad I was looking. I was just on camera for about half a minute, but I was so I really admired the work on that film, on that series, and I was very honored to be put into it in that way, right? And the way it happened was the writer was sold a car that was supposed to have been my car. Exactly as it was a true story.
Yeah.
And when I went to the set for the couple of minutes that I was on camera, the writer came up to me and said, "Would you just come around the corner and take a look at something for me?" I said, "Sure." So I walked around the corner. He says, "And there's the car. Did you ever own this car?" I said, "No." And he said, he told me the whole story, that it was, they found a pencil with tooth marks and stuff, like the whole thing was, but he was so, he had bought the car based on the fact that I might have owned it. So, but he got a great script out of it. I hope he was paid, enough for the damage not to have been done, because I don't know, he was ripped off for that car for sure.
I'm sure with union residuals, he's done very, very well. And then
if he had a part of that, you have to understand, not everybody gets those things, but anyway.
Fingers crossed for the writer of the Jon Voight car.
You bet. Say a little prayer. Everybody now take a moment of silence. Say a little prayer for that wonderful writer and that great gift he gave us.
But the bottom line, being mindful of your time, congratulations on The Painter. Glad that there's a few more movies in the can. Glad that you're still involved with wonderful causes, and really looking forward to what's to come from you, Jon. Thank you for your time.
Hey, listen, it's great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Paltrocast.